If humans were to suddenly disappear, which animal and plant species would thrive in our absence, and which would suffer? Well, in half of the US most bigger predators would thrive. Because deer would begin populating even more crazy than they already do, resulting in more food for the predators. True. I could see wolf populations doing fantastically well with increased prey and larger available ranges. Fun fact, wolves are the only animals to be found in every terrestrial environment besides humans. Edit, it appears I was incorrect. They aren't in every land environment. But they are the most widely distributed land mammal. While they are certainly among the most adaptable animals, wolves aren't found in extremely dense forests among other cases. They are still exceptionally adaptable, able to live from scorching deserts not extremely harsh, but still so to frozen tundras, from flat plains to rocky cliffs, from a diet mostly consisting of the large bison to one mostly of small animals, and one based on marine life. So yes, extremely adaptable, but no, not living in every terrestrial environment. They did a whole show on this, Life After People on History. You can actually watch it on their YouTube channel. Thanks for the suggestion. Undomesticated herd animals, like deer, will do well eating from our unattended gardens. Livestock probably will not do well, unless they have been fenced in with plenty of grazing land. Domesticated pets will fare poorly, unless we all leave a door open on our way out. Without cats and dogs, rodents and other pests will thrive. Cats will survive just fine. Yeah, I did not think about farm cats, strays, etc. There are tens of millions of feral cats, already fending for themselves. Pest insects would be the first and foremost beneficiary. Humans spend billions upon billions of dollars a year killing them. If that investment evaporated overnight, then they would swarm back by the trillions. Next of course would be everything that can get caught on a hook or in a net in the ocean. From target species to all the bycatch, the numbers of these creatures would rebound dramatically. On the other hand, the bugs that we use the most pesticides wiping out are things like stem borers, potato bugs, aphids, cutworms, and ties, which feed on monoculture crops. They thrive when the rest of the ecosystem has been wiped out, leaving only their preferred food and relatively few predators, for example no dragonflies when the water quality sucks, and few spider webs growing between row crops. I think you would see more bugs in a human-less world, but they would also be more diverse. 100 most pest species are pests because of giant monocultures that favor them over competitors. Oh, the poor pubic lice. The what? They are also known as crabs. Crab people. People crabs. Squids will take over the world. They will evolve and become the superpower of the world. Then any other animal will become their servants on their quest to take over the earth. And the squids will play paintball all the time. Stay fresh. Anything that relies directly on humans or human structures like tiger mosquitoes, cockroaches, houseflies, lice, rats, etc. will likely become absent from the temperate areas where they cannot otherwise survive over the course of the first winter or so. Plants and animals that are adapted to disturbance would be abundant for a period of time as weed species overtake human spaces and agricultural fields. Sun-loving plants like grasses, dandelions and various brassicas. The land would undergo succession tending toward forest in areas with ample moisture. First would be low weeds, then the taller perennial meadow plants, then to junipers, scraggly pines and oaks. As the forest floor builds soil and the canopy closes, longer living, shade tolerant climax species move in and become dominant. Over time much of this forest would come to no longer resemble many standing in their place today, but would gradually become more similar to what the early colonists to the New World, Australia and New Zealand wrote about finding, or the ancient cedar forests spoken of in the Epic of Gilgamesh and by Roman historians. These are often the tall, columnar forests of conifers like cedars, hemlocks, redwoods and cypresses. In many places, low-growing, sun-loving plants will be pushed to the margins of rivers and lakes and become much less abundant than they are today. In other areas the lack of human interference in the form of fire suppression will lead to the return of fire-adapted species like pines, and the land will settle into a regular pattern of growth and disturbance. As forest canopies close and rise higher, the species of birds that only nest high in the tallest trees will begin to recover and be less rare once again. Instead of white-tailed deer, which favor early succession forests, elk, moose and woodland caribou populations may recover and predominate across their former ranges. Large carnivores and other species which are badly affected by habitat fragmentation would almost immediately begin to recover as it becomes possible for them to move around without getting hit by cars or shot. Lastly, prairie ecosystems, which rely on large grazing animals, have shrunk in historical times. If bison or wisent herds can manage to recover in this scenario without humans, or if cows can fill their niche and become free-living herds, the prairies would return and expand, since tree seedlings would not survive the grazing pressure where native grasses would. That's my guess. Not gonna lie, this is probably the best answer here. Yeah, I mean, I cannot argue with anything here. My wife said dandelions and grass. This person just quadrupled down that sentiment. Now that I think about it, I was probably wrong about the rats. Our cities could crumble to dust, and they would probably still be there. They have taken over whole Alaskan islands. Sea monkeys are ducked. Brine shrimp have been around since the Triassic. If being rebranded as sea monkeys did not kill them, nothing will. What about the sea people? When you mix sea monkeys with sea men, wild animals like rhinos and elephants would thrive, since poachers would no longer threaten their numbers. Dogs that are pets would be screwed, because they do not know how to fend themselves. Especially small dogs. I would think most plants would thrive, because without humans to stay pesticides, bees can pollinate without being poisoned by chemicals. Small dogs are definitely prey, with a few exceptions. Bulldogs, pugs, and other breeds that are bred to have deformities will not fare well either. Labs, retrievers, danes, rottweilers, shepherds, collies, would probably all do fine. The huskies will be the first to reunite with wolves, and many pet breeds would form packs. Join coyote and wolf packs. Same software, just a domestication update that needs reverting. That's what I was thinking. Shepherds, labs, newfers, and huskies would probably be okay, but most of the smaller breeds would be killed off. My 2 dachshunds would probably starve. Well, one of them would. The other would probably eat squirrels until a bigger animal got to her. Insects will thrive, but I guess they usually do anyways. Not true. Insect populations have been experiencing a decline. Good. No. Bad. Lice would die quickly. So would designer dogs and cats. Bees, I imagine, would have a field day. Just bees. Only bees. Bee world. I'm guessing mice and rats, which will then lead to a boom in predators. Also, some domesticated animals will die out, but others that can defend themselves like horses will thrive. Interestingly, the mice and rats might actually drop. There are some interesting news articles about the start of the pandemic where people stopped going to places like Rome, or going out in general. So the rodents, pigeons, and seagulls had their main food supply cut. But seagulls are actually naturally birds of prey, so they started eating the pigeons and rodents, leading to a drop in their population. This obviously would only apply to heavily populated areas, but all the non-predatory animals that survive on scraps would probably find their populations getting destroyed by the predators, who also lost their main food supply. Feral cats are a huge problem in Australia and are barely being kept in check. So once the feral cat population explodes, the mice, rats, birds, etc. will go into massive decline from both predation and diseases like toxoplasmosis. I just finished watching that documentary on Vice. Good video seeing how they hunt the feral cat in Australia. Can't believe those cats eat everything, even native lizards. Cats would thrive, and dogs would die out except a few breeds. Cats would thrive in places like Australia, where they are invasive with little competition. In Africa and Asia, they will face competition from the native small felids, and would probably be outcompeted some cases, in addition for breeding out whatever little populations of wild cats are left in other cases. In Europe, their lines do the latter. In the Americas, cats would probably be pushed out of certain places by competition, and persist in others. With dogs, they would generally have a drop in population, with some surviving. At the end though, their demise would quite possibly be competition from other predators in most places. Technically though, they won't actually go extinct in many of these places, but instead hybridize with grey wolves Eurasia and North America, coyotes North America, golden jackals Eurasia, African golden wolves, and the Australian dingo, last being an ancient lineage of dogs going feral themselves. We already see traces of domestic dog DNA in their wild relatives, with black wolves in North America and strangely colored dingoes in Australia. Anything in a zoo would suffer if they did not escape first. House pets would suffer if they could not get out of the home. And anything wild would benefit. Pollution would stop and the world would regrow. The forest would come back and take over communities, and animals' endangered populations could come back over a few generations. Say goodbye to short-faced dogs. My poor Shih would not last 2 days. It depends if people died or if they vanished into thin air. If I died, she would feast on me and last a few months. Anything we domesticated will suffer in the short term, but everything would thrive eventually. Some specific things would not. Bulldog and pug genetics would get weeded out almost immediately. Those grotesque giant meat turkeys would not survive, even if they could break free of the farm. They are absolutely useless. And in North America, the wild turkey niche is already occupied. Hybrid striped bass would be effectively totally gone in about 2 decades. Because they are bred and stocked, and have functionally no real breeding ability in the wild. I think the implication is that anything remaining would be fine. Domesticated species are pretty much just food for something. Feral across the board. The only question is which domestic species can turn feral again the fastest. Thence shall the seamen rise from the deep blue sea, adapting to landforms, mutating their fins into feet, taking over the shadows of humanity, and domesticating all other life forms as livestocks. Thus, all other life forms shall suffer. Earth is durable and designed to fix itself when given enough time. Naturally, nature would take back what was taken from it, and pets animals locked away at home would pass away. Of course, much more things would happen, as this is a pretty complex question. Orangutans would benefit immensely without humans and our palm oil plantations. Domestic dogs would likely do poorly, I think. I think they have evolved alongside humans so long they have lost a lot of the instincts needed to survive in the wild. Just guessing here though. Cats for some reason seem to have retained a lot of the instincts needed. Even dogs that are built more properly to survive, German Shepherds, Dobermans, Pits, etc. would probably be forced out by wolves that would be able to expand without humans. Or you would have a lot of hybrids running around till they interbred to point they would just become part of the wolf population. There are already a lot of domestic dog genes in coyotes that are near human populations, so likely a hybrid coyote dog will wind up coming out of it. All the sheep would overheat and die. Poor sheep. I love sheep. They are so dopey. Bees would be happy. Pets not so much. Wolves, coyotes, lions, rhinos, and other animals we hunt almost to the point of extinction will thrive. Coyotes are far from extinction. Yeah, I live in Arizona and I see them literally every day. My neighbor's annoying little chihuahua is straight ducked. It feels like pandas would not do too great at this point. Also, northern white rhinos would absolutely be done for. Cougars would do better, as would a lot of big cats. Cannot think of specific plants off the top of my head that would be so greatly affected. Maybe that toxic red algae that blooms in places of high pollution. Without that type of pollution, the blooms would not happen, so the algae would not do as well without humans. That's just a guess though. I don't know. I feel like pandas might do alright. Their whole thing is that they are extremely adapted to one very particular environment. And without humans, range of bamboo forest available to them could presumably increase over time. My understanding is that pandas are so specifically evolved to a single environment. Like you said, they cannot adapt and currently rely on human help to ensure survival. If humans were to disappear with no transition period, they would fail to survive as a species because they could not survive long enough for the relatively short amount of time it would take for nature to revert to something similar to the ideal natural setting they need to survive. This is just what I understand from the vague knowledge of pandas I have. I'm open to learning otherwise. Seagulls are pretty savage creatures, but they are also ducking smart. After generations and generations of human absence, they would find themselves at war with crows and magpies. On-land rodents would also thrive, but they would also find themselves prey to stray cats and dogs. However, the one land animal that would do really well would be meerkats. They are very social animals that could easily form tribes once they figure out how to use tools. The sea probably will not change very much besides all the plastic. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more videos.